if you look at that, is definitely going down. There's some data in that who other organisations and businesses we continue to work with to drive those numbers down. But again, that's very much a multi-agency approach as well. We work with partners to identify what the challenges are. We work with operational crews who attend these to identify what the challenges are. And we work closely through our partners to support and advise the people that cause the most accidental alarms for us, if you want. But certainly we've made great strides, as you can see by the trend in unwanted fire alarm signals over the last 4 years. It's continually driving down, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you for the question, Councillor McHugh. Councillor Shears, please.
Thanks very much. Excuse me. I'm just looking at the information on part 10 and 11. That's the home fire safety visits and the fire safety enforcement. First of all, just a comment on the home fire safety visits. I notice a significant amount in my ward, the Ferry, and indeed across the east end of the city, which I hope goes a long way to expressing the importance of keeping Balmossy open, as this council has campaigned to do. But my question is in section 11, and I think I know the answer why, but I'd rather get clarification than just assume. There's a big disparity in the West End, getting more fire safety enforcement audits as opposed to other wards getting 1, 2, 4, 15. What's the reason for the disparity?
It's just the recognised premises. It's where the premises are that require that type of action and visit and audit. That's where predominantly those will be. So they're recognised premises that require that visit, and that's the situation of where they are.
Councillor Shears.
So the recognised properties is what I thought it was. Would that be sort of HMOs where students? Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Good, thank you for that question, Councillor Shears, and I see no further indication of questions. So thank you, Mr. Todd. Laura, back to you, please.
Thank you. Item 3, Dundee Local Policing Area Quarterly Police Report, and this is for noting.
Okay, Rachel, do you wish to introduce this, or I'll just open up for questions?
If I can just quickly introduce the report. Thanks, everyone. Rachel Burns, the Partnership Superintendent for Tayside. Again, happy to take the report as read, but if I can just point out to members that there is reference to 1 recorded murder having occurred within this quarter, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to point out that this is a live, ongoing investigation, so I'm really limited in what I can say in regard to that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll open up to Councillor Crichton, please.
Thank you, Convener. Just a quick comment and question, please, if you may. The activities for young people highlighted on page 36 are really excellent, and I congratulate the City Centre Policing Team, Street Soccer Scotland and council officers and local businesses for making this happen. My question is just to ask, will this positive activity continue on into the future, as it is a very highly positive initiative?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we obviously have seen great success with street soccer and with the work we're doing alongside the city centre management team to expand that further. You'll see in the report mention of the activities in McDonald's around Primark doing makeup sessions for girls. These are just the very start of what we hope to build on into the future, with our city centre policing team taking the lead and being more central as they become a community policing team. And just to add to that, at the moment we have a bit of a hybrid approach in the city centre. So the officers partly work as a community team, partly working as a response team. We're about to launch a revised policing model, which I can say more about in future reports. However, that will see much more of a community focus. So expect the activities and the work to continue to improve in that space. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that all right with you, Councillor Crichton?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McHugh, please.
Thank you. And thank you to you as well for providing this report. And again, I'm pleased to have an opportunity to scrutinise performance. Of particular interest to me is the last paragraph in the quarterly update relating to Operation Lest. I hope I pronounced that properly. I appreciate this report covers the quarter to the end of September, and these anti-immigration protests began in the middle of September this year and have continued with increasing frequency to the present day. There have been more than 20 separate protests so far, and the focus is now on Reed Square, where unaccompanied asylum seeker children are housed. Together with councillors Scullin and Toland and a large group of concerned citizens, I've been a regular attender at these protests, seeking to defend and protect vulnerable young people from vile, obscene and openly racist remarks. We understand it's now Police Scotland's policy to deploy units at local protests from across Scotland, and we wonder how this works for local communities. The three councillors involved have raised these issues actually with you in your role as local area commander. We appreciate, of course, that Police Scotland must allocate its resources as efficiently as possible. But here in Dundee, we do have concerns that this may have been at the expense of a coherent strategy or underpinning of guidance to deal with an escalating situation. My question then is, has there been any feedback from local communities or from the deployed teams on the ground around the effectiveness or otherwise of this new policy? And if there has been, how will this feed through the command structure at Police Scotland?
Before I invite Police Scotland in, cognizant of that message that's been put in the chat, but also Mr. Menny, have you any comment on that message that we should be aware of, or we just continue because the meeting's been recorded? And then I was going to ask Mr. Menny if you had any comments about Reed Square, bearing in mind it's not in this report, and if there's any legal issue with raising it before I let Police Scotland in.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, first of all, I wanted to direct all elected members' attention to the message that's been posted in the chat. The live stream has been disconnected at the moment, and those who are joining online will therefore not have heard the recent proceedings. In relation to the question that was raised by Councillor McHugh, my advice to the committee is that's a matter that should be dealt with separately, Convener.
Bearing that in mind, Councillor McHugh, I asked you to raise it separately with Police Scotland, and I will then move on to the next question, which is Councillor Toland.
I was expecting you to answer, so I was ready. You'll not be surprised that my question is also around Operation Lest as well. It's more a general question, however. What is the tipping point and threshold between protest and mob? And how do you decipher that when working on the ground?
Sorry, Mr. Menny, if you wish to come in again, please.
Yes, thank you, Convener. My advice regarding that question is the same as in relation to the previous question.
Thank you. Councillor Toland, if you could raise that with Police Scotland separately. Thank you. Councillor Flynn, please. Or maybe could one of the councillors who's attending online confirm they're able to still hear proceedings?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Convener. Just a couple of points with regards to page 42. Obviously, there's a bit of a scourge across the city with regards to the misuse of e-scooters and e-bikes, and I'd just like to get an update from the police with regards to what action is being taken. I see you've actually said 6 vehicles have been seized, but there's a number, as you can imagine, across the city in certain wards are specifically causing nothing but issues, and I'm really concerned about accidents and people getting killed, for example, just because of the misuse of riding them through junctions without any care or concern for anyone, including themselves. And secondly, could possibly get an update with regards to the police's involvement with regards to our road safety issues around schools with our streets project, and making sure that we have the confidence that the police will continue to contribute to supporting the policy put in by the council. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for the question. So Our response to the issue we have around off-road bikes, e-bikes and illegal bikes is encompassed under Operation Challenge. It shows, I think there's quite a bit of detail in the report around how that works in terms of a multifaceted response. So that involves ensuring that our control rooms make us aware of every single time there's an incident being reported, that local officers are dispatched to attend, that there is always follow-up to try and identify who's involved. It is something that is a difficult operation for us in terms of our tactics. We can use around, quite often we have people who are on bikes without helmets, and our tactics that we would have open to us in terms of someone in a vehicle are not open to us, because we have to bear in mind the need to protect the rider from a potential fatal accident, or at least a serious injury if police were to pursue. So having that tactic not available to us means that we have to attempt other avenues in order to detect and deter. We're exploring all opportunities around that. We've had targeted operations involving road policing, our operational support unit with the drone activity to monitor where these bikes are coming from. And that's what's allowed us to get to the stage where we have those 12 people in the last quarter detected for offences and 6 bikes seized. But there's no doubt that it is a difficult area for us to try and tackle. We've looked further afield, so some of you may have heard around activity undertaken by the Met, where they actually have got themselves e-bikes that they use to follow into places where our road policing cars can't go. However, what we have in that situation is a lot of these riders involved in really serious criminality, thefts of mobile phones, robberies, drug dealing, and that's not a picture that we see in Dundee. It is illegal driving and antisocial behaviour primarily. So the tactics need to fit the offences, but we are continually looking at other options, including purchase of new camcorders or body-worn video use, etc., to try and just identify who the offenders are so that we can follow up and take action slower time. Thank you. And I've actually just, if you can remind me of the other question.
Just around school streets, and just a reassurance that you're going to continue to help the policy be enforced.
Thank you. Yes, so school exclusion zones are our primary focus. We have committed to carrying out joint operations along with colleagues from the City Council at every school, every term. So there will be focused activity continuing. And over and above that, we are obviously alive to the fact that not all schools have enforcement zones, and we are ensuring that we're also servicing these schools and making sure that there are activities carried out. We now have the advantage of our armed policing colleagues being able to carry out speed controls within the city. That's a new development, so we're hoping to make more use of that as things go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just say thanks very much for the responses, and I'd like to welcome yourselves and the fire brigade back into, or the fire service back into the full committee for conversations and scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Short, please.
Thank you. Now that you are back, is it possible for you to send out to all 29 of us a list of the most current inspectors in each of the stations that would look to look after each of the wards, please? And then that way we have the most up to date. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Short. Yes, of course, I'll make sure that's done this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scullen.
Thanks. Yeah, I've just got a question on the protests as well. So it said about close monitoring of the situation and engagement, but I was just wondering what happens to these reports that go in and why things are not dealt with at the time at the protest.
Mr. Manny.
Thank you, convener. My advice remains the same.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Scullen, if you could raise that with Police Scotland separately.
Can I get an answer to why we've asked 3 questions on the protest and none of them have been allowed to be answered?
Mr. Manny, please.
Thank you, convener. Because of the nature of the question, Councillor Scullen.
Thank you. Councillor El Nakla, please.
I'd like to ask a question. I'm confused as to why certain questions aren't being answered, but Tell Mama, which is a professional organisation that records Islamophobic hate crimes, has a report that says the majority of Islamophobic incidents, or 70%, are towards visibly Muslim women and perpetrated by white males in public spaces. Another Muslim Women's Resource Centre did a report with 200 women, which said all of them had witnessed Islamophobia and 3/4 of them had experienced them themselves. I'm just wondering around tackling kind of this rise in hatred, and there is a rise in Islamophobia and racism, which we see across the country. Predominantly, I've seen incidents on socials in Glasgow. I'm just wondering, as a city, what we are doing to tackle that, what we're doing with community work, and just kind of your overall feeling towards where we're moving, because there's a number of reports that I could cite, but that's just really one of them.
Thank you, Councillor. So just to give that assurance in terms of monitoring what's coming in, we do a daily review of any hate crimes that have come into us over the course of the 24-hour period. And over and above that, on a monthly basis, we're looking at trends to see whether there's a rise or a decrease, or whether there's something coming more to the fore. More widely, we're looking with partners at social cohesion and what more we could be doing in that space. And that's something that we're continuing to look to develop further. Within our own partnerships, intervention and preventions team, we've got a strong focus at the moment, which is going to expand further around education of reporting hate crime, because what we're finding is that people are experiencing hate crime, but they're not always reporting it to us. So there's a big push to educate everyone around how it's a crime that can be reported like any other, but alternative methods around third-party reporting, making sure it's in the right language for people, for example. So there's further work to do in that space, but we're making inroads with, for example, the university's NHST side, with our asylum seeker community as well. So lots of work going on in that space, but definitely more to do. Thank you.
Just to come back in, I've lived in Dundee my whole life, which is 41 years, and I've never felt the atmosphere and seen what's happening in our city happen before, in terms of inciting racism and Islamophobia and hatred. And so therefore I just wondered, do we have any statistics most recently about that, and are you seeing an increase?
Thank you. Interestingly and surprisingly, and this is why the big focus on educating around what is a hate crime and how to report it, we're not actually seeing any rise. In fact, there's a slight decrease in overall hate crime. To break that down into exact types of crime, I'd need to come back to you, and I'm happy to do that off table. But generally, we're not seeing a rise in our statistics around hate crime, but I think that's got more to do with people not having the confidence or not yet coming forward in the numbers we would like to tell us what the real situation is. Thank you.
Councillor Shears, please.
Thanks very much. Given there's been a significant amount of questions about the protest, and understandably the legal advice is there to be asked in private, could I request that we have a private all members briefing regarding the protest and operation ongoing, where we can ask these questions and discuss them freely amongst members without the public facing aspect, so the questions that we want to be asked can be asked.
Mr. Manning.
Thanks, convener. I would suggest that the proper thing to do, Councillor Shears, is to allow me to take that under advisement, and I'll advise elected members in due course of what may or may not be possible.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for your answer there, Mr. Manning. I see no more questions for Police Scotland, so thank you very much. Laura, please.
Item 4, Policy, Community Safety and Alarm Response Team. Committee is asked to agree the recommendations.
Okay, I'm just going to open that one up to the floor. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, convener. Thanks for the report. It's really quite in depth with regards to the SARC and the policy going forward. I've just got an issue around, and a question, sorry, around the conducting of routine stair checks within the MSDs. And it does say all tenants should feel secure within both their homes and the surrounding communal areas. As we know, there's been a number of issues within the communal areas and stairwells in particular. And I think it'd be helpful for all ward members who have got MSDs within their area to actually probably get a bit more information with around this. On page 49, it says percentage of tenants satisfied with quality of communal areas across MSD stock. Can we maybe get that broken down into individual MSDs to get an idea of if there's issues in particular wards, particular buildings themselves? As I know there's one in particular which stands out, and I think it's maybe distorting the numbers, and I think it'd be helpful to know if it's one or more of the MSDs. Thank you.
Tony?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Flynn. Happy to confirm we'll arrange for that information to be provided in due course.
Thank you, Tony. I see no further questions, so is this report agreed? Thank you. Laura, please.
Item 5, tenders received by Head of Design and Property. Committee is asked to approve the report.
Okay, I will open that one up to questions. I see no questions, so is that report agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And just before I sign off, I just wanted to mention that it is Michelle Harrow's last committee with us. So I'd obviously want to thank Michelle for all the work she's done. I think she's online, which is possibly, unless she's already left, of course. I actually worked with Michelle about 25 years ago, and she went on to bigger and better things. Unfortunately, I didn't. So I wish Michelle all the best in the future with her next employment, and just to know that she's been a great help to the department and all elected members, and we all wish her well. So thank you very much, Michelle. And that is the business. Oh, sorry. Oh, apologies. Councillors Flynn and Bailey McPherson wish them. So,
yeah, thanks, convener. I'd just like to echo your comments, and I think I've worked with Michelle when I was in the housing convener, and I think it's really important the work she actually contributed to the teams themselves, and actually got the teams all collectively working together for the better and the betterment of all residents within the city. So I'd like to wish her, I say thank you for her efforts and wish her all the best for her future employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey McPherson, please.
Thanks, convener. Like others, I've known Michelle a very long time, originally from her previous role before she came to Dundee City Council. I think we would all agree she's an absolutely excellent officer, always helpful, very professional. Our loss is Blackwood's gain. I'm sure she'll make an absolutely marvellous job at her next challenge, and I'm sure we all wish her the very best for the future.
Thank you for those words, Bailey McPherson. I don't know if Michelle wishes to come in or if she's just going to graciously receive those comments.
I come in, yeah, thank you. I'll never miss the opportunity to get my voice heard. Thank you, everyone, so much. I am leaving with a very heavy heart. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time here, and I'm always a Dundee lass, born and bred, so I'll never be far away. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. I think it's usually customary to give a round of applause. Will we do that? So that is the business. There has been a request for a 5-minute recess, so there will be a 5-minute recess, and we'll see people back here at 17:50. That a round number. Thank you.
and over to you, Willie.
Okay, thank you, convener. Firstly, are there any declarations of interest?
I don't see any online or in the chat, but just put a note myself with regards to item 2. I am a member of NHS board, and although the decision was taken with regards to the neonatal intensive care unit prior to my joining, I think it's only prudent that I don't take part within the conversation and debate at that particular time, and I will leave the room and leave it with Billy Sawyers to convene. That's okay.
So I believe we have a motion from Bailey Keenan, and there's also an amendment from Councillor Toland. So I think it would be helpful if those members are agreeable that these could be circulated, and then we can move into the formal situation. So if they can be circulated, please. So, given these have been circulated, Bailey Keenan, would you like to move your motion, please?
Okay, I think my motion is self-explanatory. I think indeed the note, the committee note, is self-explanatory as well. I think it's a service that's vitally required for parents in Dundee that find themselves with a child that needs that level of intensive care. Indeed, there is a member of my own family. He is now 12-year-old today. Started off in the intensive care unit because he was born. If he'd have been born 4 days earlier, he would have died on a slab because they wouldn't have done any work on him. And in this case, obviously, they did work on him. He was born at 2.2 pound, and he's now a 6 foot 12-year-old learning to play the pipes. Really proud that he's there. And thanks to the people in intensive care that he is, and indeed his own mum, who is a qualified nurse and works in intensive care as well. So I was really quite saddened to see that there was a look towards downgrading that service given the geographical area that it represents. And, you know, hence the reason I'm thinking we should be opposing it. I want that to have been a cross-party decision to support that. There obviously looks to be some divide, and I've yet to read my way through, but no doubt as Councillor Tolan explains it, and I'll be able to come back in and sum up. So we'll see where it goes from there. It's a pity there's a divide on it, just given that what it means to people that may find themselves in a position of being shipped out of the town at the time where they vitally need the additional family support around them to give them that level of support, encouragement when they're spending obviously months along the side of a sick child, and perhaps have other children at home as well that they're shoving that care between. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks for that.
Seconder.
Councillor Cruikshank, you're to be seconding the motion, please.
Thank you. I'm very proud to be seconding the motion from Bailey Keenan. I myself have used, well...
Excuse me, Councillor Cruikshank. Bailey Keenan, could you put your microphone off, please?
Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Cruikshank, on you go.
I myself have had the experience of neonatal care within Nine Wells through my third daughter and also my grandson. And had it not been for the care that was given to them within the neonatal unit, they may not be here today. I'm glad to say that they are. But I couldn't contemplate a 17-year-old woman giving birth to an 8-week premature baby and having that baby carted off to other areas of Scotland. And the emotional strain that would have on the person and all people that have to go through that, I just think it's inordinate. So I proudly second the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Cruikshank. Councillor Toland, and then I believe you're to be seconded by Councillor Lynn.
Thank you for that. I mean, we clearly will have different. I'll keep going. We clearly have differences of opinion. My son was also in intensive care. It seems to be very echo, is it? Thank you.
Hopefully we're okay now, so on you go.
Okay, thank you. So I do appreciate everyone's experiences of their family being in intensive care. My son was in intensive care as a baby as well, and he was there for 10 days. And it's one of the scariest and loneliest times, I think, for a parent that will ever experience. But it's actually for that reason that I'm bringing forth the amendment, because I think that the changes that will be made to the Ninemills Hospital neonatal unit is part of wider structural changes that I genuinely think will offer a higher, better level of care. I would never have led this amendment if I didn't think that these changes would lead to better care for our babies. The changes come from the Best Start report that was published in 2017. This is an independent report researched and written by leading neonatal clinical specialists across the country. Its recommendations placed family centre support at the heart of neonatal care. It advocates for strong localised care and to keep mother and baby together for the duration of that care. A core value in these recommendations from this report is ensuring mothers' voices are listened to when it comes to the care of a plan for them and the baby. Since then, the NHS boards and charities have worked hard to implement these recommendations, and there's been much success in this. Tayside Health Board have seen better take-up of antenatal care. There's better psychological neonatal support now, and there's also strategies for tackling inequalities within pregnancy. Contrary to what is often being represented with this recommendation, Best Start does not remove localised support. It actually enhances a localised structure for most of our newborn babies. Having said that, for our most premature babies, the recommendation that the Best Start report has offered is a different and highly specialised support. As a core recommendation, they have stated that the best chance of survival for the smallest and sickest babies is through a co-location of the neonatal intensive care units. That shifts us away from 5 neonatal intensive care units across Scotland to 3. And it's this recommendation, of course, that's opposed within the Labour motion. This specific recommendation is aimed at the most premature and sickest babies. Ninemills neonatal unit currently treats around 300 to 400 babies each year. The recommendation would affect around 10 babies in that year, under 3% of the babies treated there. It's also important, I think, very important to note that the neonatal charity Bliss supports this recommendation. Indeed, they helped develop it. They have suggested that the larger units allow staff to develop much more specialised skills and thus build the best clinical care for these babies. Evidence tells us, they conclude, that these babies are best served through the larger neonatal intensive care structure. This and the Best Care and the Best Start assessment is powerful clinical advice. And as a parent and a politician, I cannot in all conscience ignore that clinical guidance and advice. I want to reassure families that Ninewell's neonatal intensive care will not stop. It offers excellent family-centred approach, strong localised care, and will continue to do so. I'm going to point out as well that Ninewells Hospital is one of only 2 units across Scotland to receive the Bliss Baby Charter Gold accreditation for its best family-centred practice. Ninewells neonatal support will always remain a centre for best clinical care for most of our babies born in Dundee. For the smallest and most sickest babies, however, the clinical advice and guidance is that their best chance of survival is through a more national clinical pathway, as per the recommendation to co-locate national intensive care units in the Best Start report. I feel deeply uncomfortable with a motion that ignores expert guidance. I can't begin to imagine the sheer trauma of parents having to make these decisions, which are deeply personal and difficult ones to make. But parents need the support, guidance and advice from a clinical team as they navigate that care. And if parents are to make these decisions on what is best for their babies, they need the best clinical advice and the best clinical options. It is the recommendation, the clinical advice is clear and overwhelming in this case. This is an independent report that gave top high-level clinical advice and guidance regarding this. As a politician, we have duty not to ignore that clinical advice. And I find it, as a mum, really upsetting that the Labour Party have saw fit to ignore the best clinical evidence that made those recommendations, because I think for me, that is where parents can make the best decisions for the care of their babies.
Thanks, Councillor Toland. Councillor Lynn to second, and Councillor Lynn will be followed by Councillor Crichton.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Convener. I'm happy to second Councillor Toland's amendment for the following reasons. I think it's absolutely imperative that we look at the clinical evidence for the move to neonatal intensive care provision being moved to 3 sites in Scotland. Whilst I accept that there will be some practical difficulties for the parents of the very small number of babies who will be treated there, it's the evidence on outcomes for babies from sound clinical sources which is most important. There is a large body of evidence, both from within the UK and internationally, which makes it clear that survival rates and neurodevelopmental outcomes for very premature babies are higher and better where their care is provided in a setting where there are a higher number of babies being cared for. This isn't the opinion of politicians. It's the very clear position of the medical experts who are highly knowledgeable about neonatal care, and that's why I'm supportive of the approach. As Councillor Toland has pointed out, this change will only affect a very small number of babies and their families each year, approximately 10 from Dundee. I mentioned practical issues, and it's very important that these Dundee families receive all the support they need in terms of accommodation, travel expenses and food. The Young Patients Family Fund exists for this very purpose. I believe this scheme works well, and I would urge the Scottish Government to ensure that this scheme makes the lives of those families as easy as possible at a very difficult time for them. In conclusion, there is no downgrading of neonatal care taking place as the motion suggests. Any change in how we provide services to newborn babies, which saves lives, is surely an improvement. Please support the amendment.
Thanks, Councillor Lynn. Councillor Crichton, Michael, please, and to be followed by Councillor Shears.
Thank you. On the 8th of November 1998, my twin sister and I were born in Ninewells Hospital at the neonatal unit. We were 6 weeks early and I was under £5. I was in the special care unit for a week and fed through my nose. This story is, of course, one of thousands across this city, and I don't really like talking about myself. We're here to talk our constituents, but the great care that I personally received, obviously, my life is indebted to the staff at Nine Wells Hospital, and we've gone for world-leading care to some great staff, but certainly issues that have been highlighted nationally and in Dundee. An unannounced inspection at Nine Wells at the beginning of this year found that staffing issues was one of 20 safety issue requirements highlighted. Willie Rennie, Liberal Democrat MSP for North East Fife, also highlighted the stealth in which NHS boards are downgrading facilities. In Kirkcaldy at Victoria Hospital, it's been downgraded and they said to go to Dundee or Edinburgh. And obviously Dundee is now under threat too. I'm simply, and I think this is really regrettable. I applaud Bailey Keenan for putting this motion in front of us today. And generally, I know I've said a few things in the past about my SNP colleagues, but I'm really not happy that there's a division on this tonight, because I hope that we could agree on this, because I am simply not having that cutting local support will help local people. I'm not having that argument from Councillor Toland. I think when you see that there's concerns and there's 20 safety issues, there's clearly issues that we need to pay for and support locally. Ripping it up and centralising it to Edinburgh will not help. And you hear Councillor Lynn say, for the small amount of families, these are the most, these are premature children. This is what we're here to do. And politics is all about choices. And I'm certainly on the side of the few parents in absolute distress who are needing help and support locally in a world-leading hospital that we have in Dundee. And to say I'm just going to back a report and the clinicians and to ignore the local need that we have in Dundee for this unit, I think is extremely regrettable. So I'm more than happy to support Bailey Keenan tonight, and I beg that the SNP motion be removed. Thank you.
Councillor Shears, to be followed by Billy McPherson.
Thanks very much. I guess I'm lucky in that I've never had to use the NICU at Nine Wells Hospital. My daughter was born at Nine Wells, but it's a relatively uneventful birth. But something that I want to touch on, and something I certainly have experienced, is the stress and strain that travel causes on families who have children, siblings, nieces, nephews, grandparents in these units. My brother, not my biological brother, he was a foster child that ended up becoming. My brother was born at 26 weeks and addicted to heroin. Where I grew up, the nearest intensive care unit that could give him the support was 90 minutes away. Now, I can't put into words the additional strain that my mum having to travel 3 hours each day to take care of a child laying near death in an intensive care unit, and then having to travel back and deal with the fallout of her young children worrying what is happening to their brother. And I'm going to keep it short because it's very emotional for me. I can't possibly back a motion that would put that pressure, an amendment that would put that pressure onto families like mine that went through that. It's unthinkable. It's the most horrendous time in any family's life when you have a tiny baby that shouldn't even be out of sight of its mother's womb for another few months, strapped up to machines. And then to add the additional travel onto that, that's hours away from a family, an absolute crisis. I don't believe that taking away local care, Nine Wells is never more than half an hour away for most people in this city. I can't see how that is something that this council can agree to. I once again ask that the SNP remove their amendment, support our motion, and we keep a local care unit for local families going through the most horrible time that any family could possibly go through. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that.
Bailey McPherson to be followed by Councillor Hunter, please.
Thank you. The Liberal Democrat Group will be supporting the Labour motion. And we would make the point that you do not improve services locally by removing a vital element of support locally, by taking it away. Yes, the numbers of those premature babies who are affected by that is not the majority of those. But nonetheless, and I think Councillor Shears very eloquently exemplified the concerns that are out there about the effect of the removal of local provision for such babies is having in the community. If the writers of the SNP amendment have got in their mind realised just how much there is a concern out there. There is real concern in the community about this. And the one thing I agree with the amendment is the word reassurance, because there has been a lack of reassurance in relation to what is being proposed. There is real concern, real anger in the community about what is being proposed. And as I say, I think the downgrading, for that is what it is, the downgrading of the facility in Dundee at 9 Wells is not supported by the wider community. It is absolutely not supported by the wider community. And it is, I have to say, very disappointing that we are dividing on this vitally important issue tonight.
Okay, Councillor Hunter.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. Probably like Councillor Shears to the extent, quite fortunate when both my children were born. It went reasonably straightforward, so I've never had to use those services. And I don't think anybody who has listened to any of the stories that have been in the media over the last few weeks couldn't do anything but empathise with the families. And I think it is important that lived experiences are heard and listened to. And I think we would all want the best outcomes for families. Before tonight, like a number of members, I've taken the opportunity to read the review that was undertaken and the recommendations that arose from that review, and read all the appendices and read it quite thoroughly. And it's been noted already that the review was undertaken by a number of health professionals, experts on mixed maternity services. They spoke to staff across the country. They spoke to nearly 600 new parents to understand the experiences before they came to their recommendations. And the recommendations, including the one we're discussing tonight, was evidence-led. Indeed, as noted, the clinical evidence that led recommendation states that this will increase the chances of survival for babies. And it specifically explains why that's the case. There's a more chance of them surviving if this goes forward. I've also read the follow-up, which was presented by the Scottish Government several years ago, as the recommendations were starting to be delivered. And again, the follow-up work was being done, and again, the evidence regarding this recommendation hadn't changed. I've also Googled to see if there's any clinical evidence that challenges the recommendation, and I can't find any. Maybe I just looked the wrong place, and maybe the evidence is out there, but I haven't seen it. And so while I think I sympathise and empathise with the position in the motion, I sympathise and empathise with a lot of the families that we've seen in the media over the last few weeks. If the clinical evidence says this will save lives and will increase the chances of young babies surviving, I find it hard to go against that. And while I, again, totally empathise with the wider community as been discussed by previous elected members, I can't go against clinical advice that says this will increase the chances of survival for those young babies. And I don't think we should just completely ignore that as well. So for that reason, I will support the amendment.
Thanks for that contribution. Deputy Lord Provost Ilnacla, please.
I think Councillor Hunter summed up a lot of what I was going to say, and I think that you're allowed to invite deputations to this committee and to the chambers, and we can't just make decisions based on experience. They have to be, as Councillor Hunter said, based on clinical advice and guidance, which states that more babies have chance of survival. So I just think, yeah, you can say that the SNP should be ashamed that we're not listening to the public. We are listening to the public, but we're also listening to clinicians. And I feel like if you really wanted to put your case forward and not be a political football, you would have brought a deputation.
Thanks for that. I'm not seeing any indication of any other speakers. So Bailey Keenan, if you'd like to sum up.
Okay. suppose if you're looking at where's the clinical evidence, my niece, who's a practitioner and obviously works in intensive care within Nine Wells, clearly sent a message around the family, sign up these petitions that are against the downgrading of this facility. She works there at the moment as in that kind of setting, which must be quite stressful on a regular, but knowing that her child went through that, has obviously a different emotion to her. I encourage anybody that's out there to sign the petition, because if we can't make it this way, let's make it some other way that this is protected for Tayside and for the people of this area and the geographical area that it serves at Nine Wells. John Swinney in First Minister's question time was waxing lyrical about how much money goes into health service and how many people are now in midwifery and how many people that they've taken on board. So why are we arguing about a downgrading of a service and thinking that we're doing well for people at Tayside? Why is the SNP putting forward, let's accept the watered down version, let's move people away from Dundee at their time of greatest need, when we should be at least arguing, if you were going to amend the motion, if you had amended it to improve the service within Tayside, I'd been quite happy to support it. And as for Bliss, that coming out as a charity that said, we think this is quite a good idea. I've put my hand in my pocket and gave money to Bliss before, and would seriously think again about giving them money, because having heard that they had supported it, I did go and research their accounts to see that they're funded reasonably well for the Scottish Government. So he who pays the piper calls the tune. And I think you're making a big mistake in no supporting this motion and calling for the services to be retained in Dundee, and if not improved. And if John's gets called honest, John, from time to time, if he's to be believed that we've got more in midwifery, then why are we watering doing the service for this area? It's frankly not acceptable. I ask you to support our motion.
We'll just go to the vote, please.
Okay, thank you, convener. So the motion by Bailey Keenan, seconded by Councillor Cruikshank, is as circulated. The amendment by Councillor Toland, seconded by Councillor Lynn, is as circulated. Convener.
Sorry, amendment.
Councillor Anderson.
Amendment.
Councillor Black.
Amendment.
Lord Provost Campbell.
Amendment.
Councillor Cardell.
Amendment.
Bailey Dawson.
The amendment.
Deputy Lord Provost Dilnachla.
Amendment.
Councillor Hunter.
Amendment.
Councillor Lynn.
Amendment.
Councillor Mills.
Amendment.
Councillor Rome.
Amendment.
Councillor Short.
The amendment, please.
Councillor Smith.
Amendment.
Councillor Toland.
Amendment.
Bailey Keenan.
Motion.
Councillor Cruikshank.
Motion.
Councillor McHugh.
Motion.
Councillor Scullen.
The motion.
Councillor Shears.
Motion.
Bailey Wright.
Motion.
Bailey McPherson.
The motion.
Councillor Coleman.
The motion.
Councillor Crichton.
The motion.
Councillor Duncan.
Motion.
Bailey Roberts. Bailey Roberts.
Motion.
Bailey Scott.
Motion.
That's 12 for the motion and 14 for the amendment. The amendment's carried.
Thanks. Is somebody able to retrieve Councillor Flynn, please?
Okay, thank you. We'll just move on. Over to you, Willie, please.
Okay, thanks, convener. Letitia, on to item 3, Protecting People Annual Report. This is for noting.
Thank you. The report presents the annual report of Dundee Protecting People Committee for 24-25. It is an integrated report, Adults at Risk Committee, Children at Risk Committee and Alcohol and Drugs Partnership. Plans to further integrate community justice with other partnerships in future years. I think this is the opportunity to probably bring in Elaine and Pamela, both chairs of a respective committee. So I'll bring in Elaine first, just to give a wee rundown of the report itself. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity just to speak briefly to this report. This is the Public Protection Annual Report, and as you can see, we have tried to integrate, well, we have integrated the adults at risk, the children at risk, and the ADP, the Alcohol and Drug Partnership, into one report. I'm going to just briefly touch on the 2 areas that I am independent chair for, which is the Adults at Risk and the Children at Risk committees. As independent chair, I see my role as providing assurance to Chief Officers Group and the agencies about the work that goes on, and I'm not affiliated to any particular agency, so that's a very helpful role to be in, I think, in terms of holding them the committees to account and the officers to account as well. So in line with our approach over the last few years that you'll recollect, to adopt a public protection approach, we've tried to make sure that all the elements, including suicide prevention and also violence against women and girls, are all embedded into this particular public protection report. And hopefully you can see the linkages, the clear linkages, as you read the report. The MAPA report and the community justice will be published separately, but our aim or our ambition is to try to get all of that into one document so you can clearly see the links as we move forward. You can see in the report that work has progressed developing the new public protection structure, and we've got a number of cross-cutting subgroups that are looking at issues such as quality assurance right across the piece, and communication and engagement, and also making sure that we get better links across the piece, as I said before. So, and that's really helpful. Also a big focus on learning reviews. We've got new criteria now for learning reviews, and there's much more activity in that space that actually helps to ensure that some improvements are driven forward as a result of those reviews. Just to focus a little bit on the Adults at Risk Committee, you can see from the data there's a number of increased referrals, mainly welfare concerns. That's been year on year for the last period of time, probably reflecting the demographics in Dundee, in the city, and some of the challenges that people have. And a lot of the referrals are from the police concern reports that are reported. So they're looked at very carefully, and where appropriate, further activity is taken forward and appropriate support is provided to individuals who come through those referral systems. We've done a lot of work on quality assurance. We had a multi-agency audit and staff survey, and the findings from that has led to further improvement work. So, for example, on chronologies and risk assessments, that has been an issue for us for a number of years, but we are actually seeing some improvements in those areas as we do more quality assurance and look at files as part of the work that we do. I'm pleased to say there's been a lot of work done on the Adults at Risk pathway, a multi-agency focus on how we respond to referrals and welfare concerns. And there's been a bit of a success about co-location in Seymour House, where we have all the agencies working together. And I think that's been very, very helpful in terms of increased communication and working together more effectively. So there's been a fair bit of work done in that area, and that will continue over the next year. And a lot of work on the learning framework as well to support staff and develop and training right across the whole of the number of agencies, the third sector, that's available to third sector, NHS, police, as well as local authority colleagues. The Children at Risk Committee, again, you can see the data there at the end of this period, which we're looking at in terms of this report. There were 50 children on the Child Protection Register. And again, this is a trend, I think, that we have in the city, is that domestic abuse, parental mental health, and also parental drug abuse being some of the key areas that are being highlighted that mean that parents are struggling to keep their children safe, and therefore intervention is required. Again, you can see some of the work that's been done in terms of the improvements that we've been making. Multi-agency file audit, the findings again were very generally positive, so we keep checking out and making sure that practice is sound, and if there are any improvement areas that we kind of work hard to address those. The 16 days of action for violence against women and girls, it was interesting. We got the views of primary school children during that period last year, and they were considering their gender roles and actually talking about that and how we can really address some of that at much earlier stage than perhaps we do to try to address some of the number of domestic abuse incidents that are in the city. And we've adopted a new approach to 16 and 17-year-olds. They're quite a difficult group because they straddle children and adults. So we've now been much clearer about whose responsibility is and how we're going to address concerns for that group. There is always work to do. So we've got focused work in this year around more quality assurance in the data, and looking at deep dive of areas where we think we need further information. Lived experience, we need to get better at the voice of people, hearing the voice of people with lived experience, and being a much more trauma-informed approach that staff adopt that, because as we know, a number of people, parents who we're working with, have actually had such a difficult life and face a lot of challenges in their early life. So we need to be much more trauma-informed. We need to get in around prevention much more earlier than we're doing. So I'd rather see the numbers drop and us preventing more than actually having more numbers of children or adults coming through the system. So prevention has to be a key focus, and improve communication as well across the workforce. We need to be also more public facing, making sure that the public are aware and able to report concerns as well, and work with us to keep the people in Dundee safe. So we're driving improvements at pace. That's sometimes quite hard when there's a lot of challenges for staff, but we are, as you can see from the report, we have made a lot of progress. There's more to do, and I'm sure that in the next report you'll see further progress in those areas. So I'm going to hand over to Pam Dudek, who's the independent chair of the ADP, who can just summarise a little bit of her work as well, and then we're happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to yourself, Pam.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not going to repeat some of the messages that Elaine's already given, because I would say some of the same things in terms of, trying to drive that improvement and that quality throughout our system of health and care for people with alcohol and drug problems. But I think you can hopefully see from the report some of the fairly important aspects where we've had some achievements. So the MAT standards, the medication assisted treatment standards, the fact that we continue to do well in terms of how our system is now set up and how people are accessing the system, that we are all green on that, which is great. I think just the work going forward and the work that we've been discussing a lot, and what we're trying to understand both locally and nationally in the work that's been done, is ultimately, will that have the effect where we will see a shift in the outcomes for people, particularly the significant outcomes when people pass away as a result of their drug or alcohol use. So that's yet, I guess, to be determined, but hopefully over time we would see that shift. And on the same note, the harm reduction approaches, we've done quite a bit of sense checking on what we have in place, and whether that is fit for purpose. You'll understand the change in drug trends. It means that sometimes the things that we've done traditionally, particularly for opiate-based drug use, might not necessarily be the right interventions for things like cocaine and indeed alcohol use. So we have been really trying to understand what else would make the difference. We are doing all the things that are evidence-based and we should be doing within our system of health and care and right across the different partners. But the question there about what else would make a difference in the outcomes that we see at the moment. I think the other aspects in terms of the integrated approach that we're trying to refine and improve upon is very much about those most vulnerable citizens that we have, and how do we make sure that we are not moving people from one person to another, that we are actually giving continuity of care and bringing all the key partners around the person to get the best outcome. And so we are very focused on what else needs to happen there, and particularly that mental health and substance misuse coexistence. So approaching it in this way and being part of that integrated system feels really positive and really hopeful. But equally, we understand as an ADP that we must keep a focus on very specific aspects of drug and alcohol aspects that need to be honed in on and kept alive and well, and not lost in the busyness of an integrated system, which is something we're very keen not to happen. I think the last thing really that we've been spending quite a bit of time on is the voice and is the of people who use our services, the voices of families, and how again do we bring that together using the work that is already going on in Dundee, but also the Charter of Rights that was launched last December. And we've been looking at other partnerships and how they've gone about trying to implement that. And again, understanding what we're already doing and can build upon, rather than the just bringing in another new project. So we're really trying to join the dots and bring things together in a way that is integrated and that will hopefully optimise the possibilities for people who are struggling with their lives in relation to alcohol and drug misuse. And hopefully the report gives you that good overview of things, but happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you for your introduction to the report. So actually detailed, and I have to thank your staff for the good work they're actually doing and the progress you're making. I think everyone in the committee, I'm sure, appreciates the efforts that have been put into both sectors, three sectors actually. But thanks very much for that. And I'll open it to questions. Now, looking at the time, Dorothy, were you the first person to ask a question, or was that the last? Yeah, Dorothy. Okay, over yourself then, Dorothy.
Thank you. I like this report. I like how it's laid out, particularly the data, the statistics. So thank you for that. And it's easy to read, and it's got everything that I think we need. The report details good progress in promoting safety and wellbeing across our communities, despite the resource challenges outlined in section 4.3, mainly relating to the difficult financial landscape that we're all facing. I have a question relating to the statistics, maybe for Pam, under the Alcohol and Drug Partnership. These are illustrated on the second last page of the annual report. And they show that there were more referrals for drugs than alcohol, 1,100 against around 500, and yet significantly more hospital stays for alcohol than drugs, just over 1,000 against 576. What does this tell us, if anything, about the pathway to treatment, and particularly about resource allocation?
Would you like to come back?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, those are really good points and good insights to pull out actually from this report. So nationally, there's quite a lot of work going on around the reduction in referrals for going through alcohol pathways, which is a bit of a national trend. And so those stats could and probably are affected by the change in how the alcohol pathway has been or has not been working optimally. So I think we at the moment we are working with people from other ADPs and nationally to understand more about that. There's just coming out this week and over the coming months, there will be more information and guidelines for us to look at in terms of the best evidence to measure ourselves against. But there is no doubt that it is a national trend that things are down in the world of alcohol, perhaps more than taking that things have improved for people, because I don't think that is the case at all. And I guess where people pitch up and what's available to respond to people being admitted with an alcohol problem to the acute hospital may be symptomatic of the limitation of that service as well. So those are some of the things that we think and believe will be influencing this, but the area of debate and the area of expertise that we're drilling into at the moment, and really significant in terms of the impact of alcohol in a broader sense, generally within a population.
Thank you very much.
Answered your question. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much for that, Pam. Over to Billy McPherson, please.
Thanks, Convener, and thanks very much to both Pam and Elaine for their overviews tonight. I think we owe the independent chairs a debt of gratitude for the work that they do. I think it can't be said often enough that it is genuinely appreciated. And I agree with Councillor McHugh's points that the report is well written, well presented, and makes a lot of information quite easy to read and absorb. So grateful for that. I wanted to just touch on the difficult issue of suicide and the work done in terms of suicide prevention. 25 deaths through probable suicide in 2024. Each one is a tragedy. That's a small decline on the previous year, but we remain the second highest in Scotland in terms of probable suicides. And as I say, an absolute tragedy. The report alludes to the appointment of a full-time suicide prevention coordinator and coordination of the publication rather of a delivery plan. And I think that's extremely helpful. However, I think it would be useful, and I'm not really talking about a face-to-face briefing, more maybe of a briefing note, to give us some more further information about how the work of the coordinator is going forward, what the engagement is across the city. There is some further reference in the Chief Social Work Officer's report, item 7, I note, but I think it would nonetheless be very useful if it's agreeable, if a briefing note on the work of the suicide prevention coordinator and progress with the delivery plan could be provided to elected members. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I'm sure they appreciate that. Elaine, would you like to come back on?
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure that would be fine to do that. Yeah, we've got the Creating Hope in Dundee, the delivery plan. So that has been to the Chief Officers Group as well. So I'm sure that that we'll be able to do that. Billy McPherson to provide a briefing, or whatever is the best way to do that. I'm sure that could be provided. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shears, please.
Thanks very much. And just to echo what others have said about the report, it's very digestible, very easy to read. So thank you for that. And especially on a committee where we can have reports hundreds of pages long. This is very refreshing and easy to read. One thing I didn't see, and I hope it's me not just missing it, is harm reduction approaches to drugs. I've noted in there about the study of feasibility for safe consumption rooms and drug testing, but what I'd like to ask about, and hopefully it is something on your scope, is harm reduction when it comes to so-called casual and recreational drug use. We know drugs like ecstasy, MDMA, ketamine are all popular, particularly within student populations, not always. But I'm just wondering, is there work being done on harm reduction with those drugs where we offer things like drug testing? I know there's festivals around the UK that now have drug testing facilities where people who do intend to use drugs recreationally, such as MDMA, ecstasy, can get them tested in order to prevent things like accidental overdose. I think drug death of that kind sometimes fall a bit to the wayside, and with the focus on Dundee in particular, on drugs like heroin and street Valium. So I was just looking for a bit of a comment on what we're doing on that side of things, please.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Pam?
Yeah, in terms of sense checking, I think when I spoke earlier around what else we could be doing that looks beyond the use of opiates, that is absolutely around what other harm reduction could we be doing. The drug checking, we are in the process of, you need a license to do that, and we have been going through that process for some time. It's quite a process, legal process, and that is now progressing well, but it will be about another 6 months before we will have that, before that will be fully implemented. So you will get more on that, I would imagine, as that becomes comes to the fore. And that's not for anybody holding back and trying to take too long to do this. It's the legal process of being able to do drug checking, having the right equipment, some of which we have, and obviously Dundee University, we're lucky that we've got them alongside us in terms of that journey. So we will have that ability, but we don't have that capability today. And that is mainly for the legal process that we've had to go through. So all the things you've mentioned are the things that we are absolutely focused on and trying to understand better, but the drug checking aspect will happen.
Thanks very much for that, and that answers the question. Just ask on that, is that actually based within the UK legal process or UK government? Is that where they're waiting on approval coming from?
Yes, it is. It is the UK. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Bailey Keenan, please.
Yeah, can I maybe ask a question about the violence against women and girls? It appalls me that the statistics go up and seem to go up year on year, and wondering when it comes to domestic abuse, if there is anything happening anywhere else that we should adopt, work in partnership with each other and try to better these figures. And also wondering whether the recorded 2,766 domestic abuse cases, whether these are all a violent attack or whether they're mind games getting played on people. And do we know whether there is young people in these households where that type of thing's going on as well? Because that, just magnifies how bad the problem is for Dundee and how much we really need to focus on doing something about it.
Thanks for the question. Elaine, over to you.
Yeah, I think violence against women and girls, major issue right across the whole UK and Scotland as well. You're right to point out that the numbers are very worrying. One of the reasons why a lot of children are received into care is because of domestic abuse within the household. I personally don't have the breakdown of the numbers of that. So some will be coercive control, as you said, some may be actual physical violence, some may be other types of violence that are there. So not sure if that is actually, that breakdown is available. We could certainly check that out for you. But yeah, there's a lot of focus on this, both in Dundee, but also nationally. I think the third sector organisations do a wonderful job trying to support women who are under that kind of pressure. But I think, again, more to do in that area. I think we work really effectively together, but I think it is a challenge. And I think that point about we need to get in earlier, we need to be really working with schools, we need to really be changing the mindset in terms of the way that young people understand relationships. That's got to be really critical as we move forward, because that's where some of it starts, as you say, and then it's very difficult to change that at a later date. So absolutely would support the work that we're doing in that area. And of course we have still got Anne Hamilton, who's our violence against women advisor, and she's very helpful in both of my committees to tell us what else we can do and how we can move that agenda forward. So absolutely agree. So we need to keep a very close eye on the data, but if we can get it reduced, I'd be delighted as we move forward. It is such a challenge for us locally and such a challenge across Scotland as well. So thank you for the question.
Come back in.
Is there a particular area, you mentioned the third sector financially potentially struggling? I wonder if there is some area there where that bit of extra support would make a difference in Dundee.
Yeah, the third sector do a wonderful job, but their funding is year on year, and that does create sort of challenges from time to time. So I think if we could get the funding on a more stable footing, I think that would be a welcome to that sector in terms of how they can approach that moving forward. I'm sure that would help, but they do a fantastic job in Dundee, and some of them, they now are sitting very, very firmly in our committees and helping to contribute to all of our conversations, and they're very, very effective. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your answers. Deputy Lord Provost.
Thank you. We are actually in the 16 days of action against gender-based violence, and RASAC had the Reclaim the Night event on Friday, where they shared that they had worked with 700 women in Dundee over the past year. I am keen to know why then we have reduced our activities this year quite dramatically compared to last year, where we are seeing these increases. You know, last year we had a public facing itinerary, quite a large number of events. This year we don't have any events. I'm just wondering why.
Elaine, any comment?
I wasn't involved in the planning of these events. I'm not sure if one of the other officers are able to give a little bit more insight into that, who were involved in the planning. I mean, clearly, yeah, we need to continue to raise the profile. It may be simply just pressure, time and demands, but perhaps we could get an answer to that, unless any of the officers are able to shed any more light on, because I certainly was involved in the planning of that this year.
Thanks, Catherine. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Right.
Thanks. The Protecting People team have worked closely with the third sector around the planning of the 16 days for a large number of years in the city, and as the Deputy Lord Provost points out, that the RASAC in particular and the other women's services have taken a strong role in terms of the leadership of that. This year, we've also worked in previous years with the schools around the programme of events, and we have some workforce-facing events as well as some public events. I know the march on Friday night was very well attended as well. Of course, there's not just the 16 days, there's awareness raising throughout the year as well in terms of a range of public-facing information resources and events too, but balancing the available resources that we have within the teams and our partner agencies, and really maximising everybody's contribution as a real focus for the 16 days. I think it works very effectively when partners work together on it, and particularly our third sector advocacy services supporting those events, but we'll also pass on the feedback to the team for consideration for the programme next year.
Okay, thanks very much. And Nadia?
Just to come back into that, I think it ties in though with a little bit of worry about the amalgamation of the Protecting People's team, where you have officers working exceptionally hard, like Sophie. I meet with Sophie quite regularly, who is used to deal and be the team leader for Violence Against Women, but is now part of like a larger group of work. So I just think it would be good to know for future, is there things that are needed to make sure that we are giving it the attention and having absolute zero tolerance for the issue moving forward, and actually staff aren't completely overburdened.
Thanks very much. I think the officer will take on board your comments, and we'll see where it goes for next year. That'll be helpful. Thanks very much. I don't see any further questions, so I'd just like to say thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Palmer, for being available for tonight and for answering questions. And you don't need to stay if you don't want to. Thanks very much. Thank you. Willie, please.
Okay, thanks. Take Sean to item 4, Chief Executive Service Plan Mid-Year Progress Report. This is for approval.
Just go straight to questions here. Councillor Duncan, please.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, just my attention's drawn to the mention of the average number of work days lost through sickness absence per full-time equivalent employee in the Chief Executive Service has shown 128% deterioration, which is quite significant. On page 45, we're told, and I quote, "Further action is required to bring this indicator back within the target of 3 days," which I certainly can't disagree with. But that's you know, if I'm being so honest, that's a bit vague, and I'm just really looking for officers to give us some detail as to how this might be achieved.
Andrea, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Duncan. Due to the being such a small team, it only takes one or two people to have a significant illness to have a huge impact on absence. So that has actually happened over the last year, but we are supporting those employees through various means. So we are hoping that we are seeing an improvement already, and we're hoping that we will get back to a more normal absence for the chief execs in the coming 12 months. So by the end of the financial year, you should see a change in that.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Craig?
It does. I mean, I appreciate that you certainly can't go into details, but you know, certainly looking forward to an improvement. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And I don't see any further questions. Can I take that as agreed? It's agreed. Thank you. Willie, please.
Thanks. It takes you on to item 5, capital expenditure monitoring. This is for noting.
Again, just move straight to questions. Bill McPherson, please.
Thanks, Convener. My question's in relation to the information on page 61, 5.2.2, in relation to sustainable transport and infrastructure, which shows a reduction in proposed projected expenditure of £353,000, not an insignificant amount of money in the current financial year. I was just really wondering if officers could indicate which are the main projects affected, and is this affected because of slippage, or is it because of match funding yet to come forward?
Paul?
Thank you, Billy McPherson, for the question. I'm happy to provide that information out with the meeting once I discuss the matter with the lead officers.
Is that okay, Bill McPherson?
Yeah, that's fine.
If you just pass that around all elected members, Paul, that'd be helpful. Bill Keenan, please.
Yeah, I notice that the capital expenditure in housing is down considerably, and predicted that it would be sort of about 10 million short by the year end. One of the areas in particular in energy efficiency seems to be adrift by about £3 million. And that's a bit of a concern, given that we're looking to put rents up by 8% or 8.5%, yet we haven't delivered what we could have delivered in energy efficiency measures that might well alleviate some of the problems that people all have meeting household bills. So could officers give me some indication as to when we'll have that addressed?
Paul, please.
Thank you, Billy Keenan. So I can confirm that, as outlined in the report, the overall budget for HRA for capital expenditure was some £34 million. We're now projecting to spend just over £22 million. So there is an underspend of circa £12 million. But as with all capital projects, and given the nature of them, that they can slide over a number of years, the reasons for that slippage are over a number of projects, and one of those, as you mentioned, is in relation to energy efficiency measures. This relates specifically to the project within Linlathen. We are following receipt of the tender. That expenditure was now being reprofiled into future years. In addition to that, there's further slippage throughout the plan in relation to window replacement programmes, etc., where due to the delays in the lead time for providing materials have meant that these works will now slip into future years.
Thanks very much for the answers. I see no further questions, so I'll take this report as agreed. Thank you. Moving on, Willie, please.
Yeah, thanks. Item 6 is revenue monitoring. This is also for noting.
Again, just move straight to questions. Councillor Crichton, please.
Thank you, Convener. In terms of the financial recovery plan, I note that on page 77 that the services will limit recruitment to only posts considered essential, or failure to fill the post would place the council at significant risk. I note the role of the Establishment Control Board, but can I ask what democratic oversight there will be on this, as I think elected members are entitled for reassurance on this. I'm aware that there's a weekly establishment changes report to group leaders, but how are the non-filling of posts reported?
Well, again, sorry, Greg, sorry.
Thanks, convener. So the Establishment Control Board, Councillor Crichton, now meets on a fortnightly basis and consists of the Executive Director of Corporate Services, the Head of People, and any other relevant officers. I consider the establishment of posts to be an operational matter that's delegated to officers, and I'm happy to have a discussion with you around what areas of concern you may have and how best we address those. But as the report outlines, there's still a substantial overspend where officers have a duty to ensure we comply with our statutory responsibilities, but where possible, we drive that overspend down to as near to zero as possible. So I'm happy to have a further discussion with you out with the meeting, and then anything that's agreed, share with all elected members.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yep, that's time for me. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. Bill McPherson, please.
Thanks, convener. I'm grateful that the Chief Executive will speak with Councillor Crichton regarding this. I totally agree with him that the individual posts as an officer, if you like, a management responsibility. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. However, I think what we would want to know, I think elected members have an entitlement to know, is the general areas in which posts are not being filled. Statistics rather than individual posts, if you like, because quite clearly we would have a concern if, for example, the housing service was disproportionately affected or another service was disproportionately affected. So I don't really want the Chief Executive to have to come back in, but perhaps in his discussions with Councillor Crichton, he can give some reassurances in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and I think the professionalism of the officers will then look at the people who have been forward or not filling posts will be taken into account as usual. I don't see any further questions, so I'll take that report as agreed. Thank you. Over to yourself, Paul.
Okay, thanks. Item 7 then is the Chief Social Work Officer annual report, which is for noting.
Thank you. The report presents the annual statutory update from the Chief Social Worker Officer for Dundee City Council covering 24-25. And I'll bring in the Lead Officer, Glyn, to maybe introduce the report.
Thank you, convener. And as a brief 2-minute overview or summary of the report, I'm pleased to present to the City Governance Committee my first full annual report covering the 12-month period 2024 to 25. Some of the information in the report mirrors what's already been provided to elected members in other reports, such as our Promise Annual Report, IJB Performance Report, and the Protecting People Annual Reports presented earlier today. The report consolidates and extends this information in relation to the specific contributions made by social work and social care services to Council and Health and Social Care Partnership priorities, especially in relation to addressing inequalities, promoting social inclusion and protecting vulnerable people from harm. Over the period, some key achievements have included improved inspection grades across most regulated services, good progress in the balance of family-based and residential care for children and young people, refinements to the adult support and protection pathway, implementation of the early release scheme for prisoners, and sustained performance in delayed discharge. Support to the workforce has been enhanced by embedding the newly qualified social worker scheme, implementing magic notes in children's and justice services, developing a new support and supervision framework, responding to the Care Inspectorate thematic review of governance arrangements, and promoting the use of employee health and wellbeing supports. However, the report also outlines some key challenges for services, including poorer outcomes for children and people in kinship care, increased hospital admissions and readmissions, increasing demand for community services for older people and drug-related deaths. Days lost to absence remain high and contribute towards reduced capacity, increased costs and risks. Going forward, the level and complexity of demand alongside continued financial constraints mean that all services will place a growing focus on prevention, including through involvement in place-based whole family support, community engagement and asset building. Services will need to collaborate with key partners, families and communities to jointly focus on shared priorities. Other priorities include responding to a current inspection of adult mental health services, contributing towards reducing the prison population, implementing national requirements such as the Care and Justice Act, the Promise Bill, the Prevention of Domestic Abuse Bill, the Domestic Homicide Bill and the Assisted Dying Bill, and supporting the workforce in response to existing and anticipated demands. That's a brief summary of what's a fairly lengthy and detailed report, and I'll pause there unless any questions or comments from elected members.
Thank you very much for that, Glenn, and I'll go straight to Councillor Coleman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Convener. Can I ask if the Chief Social Work Officer is fully satisfied that statutory responsibilities can be fully met in 25-26 financial year and going forward, given the very significant cuts to the Health and Social Care Partnership this year and further in-year savings being imposed?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Coleman. I think I can say that we do have some confidence that statutory responsibilities can be upheld, certainly within children's services and justice services. As we know, the financial climate and challenges are more stretched, more difficult perhaps in health and social care, but equally I'm confident that certainly this year statutory requirements are being met. Next year it continues to be challenging and perhaps those challenges will grow, but obviously service will need to adapt to that, prioritise and focus on statutory requirements because that's absolutely essential in terms of what we do.
Thanks for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yep.
Councillor Scotland, please.
I've got a question on page 109. It says about unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. It says the service will support them to stay safe. They can also be protected where necessary by local child protection arrangements. Surely that would include the ability to stop a mob of men walking around the building, shouting, swearing and taking photos of the inside of their bedrooms. Is there anything that can be put in place to help these children stay safe?
That's the question. I'll pass to Mr. Merry first.
We are referred to my previous advice.
Thanks very much for that. I don't see any further questions, and just like to say thanks very much to your team. As like previously with the other teams, and I've seen this year's report, social work and social care services have continued to deliver quality support and improves lives and protects vulnerable people whilst contributing towards and responding to the range of national, regional and local developments. I don't see further questions, so I'll take this report as agreed. Thank you. Molly, please.
Okay, thanks. Takes you on to item 8 and the Integration Joint Board Performance and Strategic Planning Developments Report. This is for noting.
Thank you. The report informs the City Government's Committee about the publication of IGB's statutory annual performance report and key developments in strategic planning of adult health and social care in Dundee. And I'll ask if Mr. Berry wants to make any initial comments before we start, or just are you quite happy? Okay, we'll just go straight to questions then. Billy McPherson, please.
Thanks, Convener. I think it's actually, again, another well-written report, a lot of information in there. I was wondering, and it's probably a question for Mr. Berry, given the financial challenges facing health and social care and Dundee Health and Social Care Partnership, can I ask about an issue I raised some time ago regarding daycare? Now, the amount that daycare is mentioned in this is very, just in passing on page 166, where the number of, well, it's actually lumped in with care homes, 20 care homes and daycares is mentioned on page 166, and nothing specifically about daycare in relation to care for older people. It's mainly around care homes. I should say at the time I raised the issue I'm going to come on to, I did declare an interest because at that time I was a member of the board of Dundee Age Concern, who run the Five Ways Centre, as you will all know. I'm no longer on the board, so I've not had to declare an interest tonight. But my issue was about the tendering of daycare, which hadn't actually happened for a very long time. And I'm just really wondering if there has been any progress with regard to tendering for such services going forward. Now, I know the landscape is changing with self-directed support, but nonetheless, I was quite surprised at the length of time that had elapsed since daycare services had gone out to a competitive tender, and I would just really be grateful if officers could give a little bit of an update on the current position. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes, thanks, Convener. Thanks, Billy McPherson, for the question. So, in terms of our kind of tendering processes, we kind of work on a rolling programme, so we don't tend to kind of go out on an annual basis to kind of re-tender for services. Specifically in relation to daycare services for older people, the partnership conducted a review of daycare provision for older people over the last kind of 18 months. and determined that in terms of kind of capacity and demand, that there was actually overcapacity within the city. And there has been a real kind of focus on a number of services which were operating kind of more at capacity, and those are the services that we have kind of concentrated on in terms of the provision across the city. That also includes the internal kind of provision at Oakland Day Centre, which has seen an increase in demand since the pandemic, after a period of declining demand. But as Bailey McPherson points out, there is a shift in the landscape with self-directed support, where there is much more of kind of a much kind of wider range of individual supports for people who require services.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
I'm grateful to Mr. Berry for his response. I'll maybe just follow up further with him rather than detain everybody tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Councillor McHugh, please.
Now, I sit on the IJB board. Is it appropriate for me to make a comment? It is. Thank you. The introduction to section 4.1.4 of the covering report says it demonstrates a range of achievements and challenges in commissioning and delivery of integrated health and social care services. I'm always interested to hear about good performance and to celebrate good work, clearly articulated in this report. But as an IGB member, my focus is and always will be on the challenges and that threaten our ability to deliver our strategic priorities. So my eye is drawn to this section. There are 8 separate paragraphs, and each of these describe an achievement. No challenges, it would seem, not in the covering report. Helpfully, however, the annual performance report is more illuminating, and here we find 8 paragraphs listing challenges. 4 of these describe issues around financial resources and inadequate funding. 3 others talk of challenges with workforce supply, recruitment issues, and absence levels. These 2 sets of challenges are not unconnected. Elsewhere in the report, we hear about the need for quickening the pace of transformational change to offset budget constraints. But the sad fact is that at last year's budget, we had to cut funding for transformational change to balance the books. Already, budget development sessions for the IGB members are starting, and a consultation is in preparation to go out to our citizens. There are difficult days to come and even more difficult decisions to be made. Our most significant challenge and the greatest risk to achieving our priorities is funding. We are all aware of the serious and enduring deprivations facing our people. Transformational change will only be possible with adequate resources, targeted where there is most need. So I urge everyone in this chamber to turn your attention to persuading and influencing decision makers at all government levels to provide adequate funding so that we can begin to make inroads into achieving all of the key priorities highlighted in our strategic plan.
That's your comments, Dorothy, and everybody will note that. Bailey Keenan, please.
I noticed the dentistry comes under primary care, and getting a dentist is obviously a bit of a challenge. And that dentist decided to pack up a few years ago, and I got offered to the health service a number of alternatives. It might have been going to Crieff or Forfar or wherever for a dentist appointment. But where previously you got a few dentist appointments a year, a scale and polish every time you went, and we're now at the stage where you get a once-a-year appointment, and I'm just wondering whether that's reflecting in any kind of deterioration in oral health, given that, you know, in a dentist appointment you could well pick up there's the start of a cancerous growth or whatever that he may well be able to pick up that people won't be seeing until perhaps it's gone a bit too far.
Thanks for the question there, Bailey Keenan. I think the best kind of way to respond to that is for me to kind of take this back to public health and to see if there's anything that any kind of statistics that they have that kind of evidence that particular cause and effect. So I'll take that back and report back to committee.
Thanks very much for that. It's appreciated.
Thanks. I don't see any further comments or questions, so we'll take this report as agreed. Thank you very much. Wally, next please.
Okay, thanks. Takes you on to item 9, developing a full family support approach. You're asked to agree the recommendations.
The report provides an overview of the whole family support approach, focusing on how it can be prioritised and implemented in Dundee to address complex family challenges such as poverty, health inequalities and poor housing. And I'll put over the questions. Councillor McHugh. Nope. Yes.
Comment. I fully support this initiative. You won't be surprised to hear. I've long argued in this chamber for additional targeted support for the East End ward, and a glance through the data report underscores this need. Just look where the red scores lie. This is not news. We have long been aware of the challenges facing the East End community, and yet it has been necessary time and again in this chamber to protest cuts to community facilities in my area. This then is another wake-up call. When the city's resources are under pressure, our most challenged communities feel it the most. They are the least resilient and the least able to speak up for themselves, so we must speak and act for them. Targeting support where it is needed most must be the way forward. Targeting support works, and the success of the Lunlathen Pathfinder and other similar initiatives prove that. This proposal is a way forward, and I hope members across the chamber will support it.
That's your comments. And I think that's absolutely going to be accepted across the chamber. I think there's much to be said about the Scottish Government choosing Dundee as one of six of the local authorities to pilot the WFS. So we're looking forward to seeing what the outcomes will be in both these wards going forward. I don't see any further comments, so we'll take that as agreed as well. Lily, please.
Okay, thanks. That takes you on to item 10, auditorium hire from Drumgeeth Community Campus. You're asked to agree the terms of the note.
It's just as it is. And questions, so we'll just take that as agreed, and that's the business for site governance. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome, hopefully briefly, to the special meeting of the City Growth and Infrastructure meeting. First item, please.
Thank you. Declaration of interest. Are there any declarations?
Just pause a minute. Okay, I don't see any, so we'll just move to it, please.
Item 2, tenders received by Head of Design and Property. This report is for approval.
So as Laura said, this is a tender report for approval, quite straightforward. Are there any questions on this item? Councillor Flynn, please.
Thanks, Convener. Could I just maybe get asked the Executive Director to maybe explain the rise in the costs and any idea behind them?
Right. Mr. Martin.
Thanks for the question.
Convener and Councillor Flynn, in terms of the rise of costs, it's very much driven by market, and demolition contractors are influenced by salvage in terms of how they see specific projects. So it's really just market forces that have indicated how we've got to the tender prices that have been submitted.
Yes, Councillor Flynn.
So I apologise for that, as the other way around. But yeah, I do when the actual demolition will actually start. That's probably the question as well.
Mr. Martin.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So in terms of the programme, the intention is that if the report's approved tonight as read, that we'll be in contact with the contractor quickly on the basis that the contractor will then take on the project pre-Christmas. So the intention will be that they'll carry out security and probably some initial surveys, and the main works will then commence in the new year.
Thank you. I obviously welcome this in making the site safe and progressing as fast as possible. Any further questions? I don't see any, so can this report be agreed? Thank you very much. That's the business.